Bravery is so damn pretty. It's beautiful. I shape, I mold, I transform. All right, Clubhouse. Okay, Clubhouse. The present is woman. The present is woman. The present is woman. The present is woman. Past isn't alive. Nope. Tomorrow is none of my business. Nope. Here and now, my reality. Here and now, I will experience all that I desire in my mind's eye. In my heart and emotion, I am now. My present is me. My present is me. My present is woman. I am creating presently. My now has one, my one is now. Present is woman. Never ending overflow of womanhood. Womanhood overflowing now. Thank you, universe. Thank you, universe. I'm such a fan of your magic. Thank you for allowing me to exist right now. This never-ending miracle. I choose to see the world through the eyes of now, a pure state. The present is woman. The present is woman. I create, we create the present, the now. The present is creating. The present is woman. Thought by thought, words by words, I carry manifesting tools in my purse. Hey, the present is woman. The present is woman. The present is woman. My life goes according to what I think, feel, say, and feel most often. My feminine essay, I rest in. My courage and bravery is so damn pretty. It's beautiful. I shape, I mold, I transform anything and everything by being 1 second present. The present is woman. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are getting started both on Facebook, YouTube, and here in Clubhouse. And I accidentally set it up for the new group that we created, and the replay is not on. Of course, this discussion was so lit last week. We want the replay to be on, but the good news is like most women, we always have a backup plan. So if nothing else, this will be on the YouTube channel. And if you're watching on Facebook, just come into the Clubhouse rooms, search Rev Coach CEO on Clubhouse. So what we can do is add members or invite other members to join this room. That's one way to invite to get around this particular issue. Does anyone know of another way? Unfortunately, I do not. Okay. All right. I'm always doing something new, and look at that. But that's the Gemini in me. All right. So again, welcome everyone. Last week we started the discussion about women in group economics. What I want to do is just jump right in and give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. And I know people are looking for this group. So I know there's only 6 or 7 of us here. So I'm wondering if I should just end this, copy the description, and just open it up on the front channel. Would you all be game for that? Yes, I'm game for that. Okay. All right. Well, let's in this room, copy it, and let me open it up on the front channel. All right. All right. So if you're watching on Facebook and it's quiet, we're jumping right back into our discussion from last week. If you don't know who I am, I'm Latanya Taylor, affectionately known as the Rev Coach, the Juicy Spirit Mama, the priestess of purpose, pleasure, and passion. And we are live on Clubhouse in just a moment. I created a group on Clubhouse, and it actually made it private. So what we're doing is reopening it to the public. So if you have the link in the comments, there's going to be a new link. I'll try to drop it in without multitasking too much. Last week, and so I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves in a moment because we have some new voices on the platform this week. All right, there we go. Okay, we're live. We got it started. We got it fixed. We're on the front. We're on the front channel now. I'm going to see if I can drop the link, invite who needs to be invited, and get us going into the room. So last week, we got really passionate about this conversation, more passionate than I knew we were going to be in terms of Generation X and millennials and all of that good stuff, right? And we talked a lot about the dynamics between the generations, baby boomers, Generation X, and millennials. And now we have Generation Z, right? We have the generation that's been looking, they've been doing business, been becoming millionaires and all of that good, all of that jazz. So now that we see that there is a stimulation of our youth, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for our relationship with one another? And so the question that I have on the table today, are we able to do woman to woman relationships? Are we able to shift the narrative? And this is a new conversation, an open conversation for some people, because there are still some people who believe that collaborating with women is something that's difficult or a challenge. People talked about that last week in terms of being left out of circles because they had not pledged a sorority. Some people talked about it from various angles. So what I want to do today is, instead of just jumping in and introducing yourselves, I want to go round robin to everyone who is already on the stage, which is our sister Shaquanda, also affectionately known as CJ, our sister Yolanda. And you all are welcome to come to the stage if you own a business, and definitely share what perspective that you'll be sharing from when we talk about women and group economics and our ability to do business together. If you are watching on Facebook, please join us on Clubhouse in the discussion so that we can hear your voice. Some of you all gave some amazing feedback on last week. So Yolanda, go on and introduce yourself, then CJ and Keela, if Keela is coming to the room. And we have another guest, Dr. Tasha. Hopefully she will be able to get to the room as well.
Ashe. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yolanda Niels, and I run 4 businesses, and I run them highly from the perspective of collaboration and community development, building wellness that results in generational wealth for our community. Is there anything else you wanted me to say?
Is there anything? You're a multipreneur, so you definitely have a perspective from as being a business owner that you're bringing to this conversation. But so we'll capture it in just a moment. CJ, you want to introduce your business?
Yes, thank you so much, Well, Coach. My name is Shaquanda, yes, affectionately known as CJ, and I'm an accountant and owner of my own accounting firm, and I help business owners with their financial planning. I am super excited to talk about this conversation with group economics, especially during this time that we're in at the moment. So definitely grateful to be here to talk about the financials and the number side. That's the side of this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we can get our good doctor is not going to the other link. We have another sister who just came in from Africa, and she's back in the States. And one of the things she says, she's like, I can feel the oppression in the air. It's what she says since she's been back in the States. And if any of you who have lived abroad, you know that this is a dynamic that many people face when you return to the States. So anyone want to jump right in terms of what you heard last week that may have just reignited the memory of why group economics is hard? The question that I've already asked is, are women harder on other women? Are women harder on other women? I will read your statement out loud on Facebook and on Instagram. Are women harder on other women? And where does this come from?
So last week, it was definitely a lot of awarenesses and ahas for me, because I even went all the way back to when grandmother would say 2 women can't live in the same house, or there was always a competition on who made the best gumbo. So it was, I feel like it was ingrained. But in the workplace, what I've seen, even working with in Fortune 50s, that we feel like we have to compete against one another because we are the minority. That's just been my experience. And so having this dialogue now as full-time entrepreneur, I'm seeing that there is indeed a shift in economics, even just as early as today, where you're seeing that corporations that you would never have thought would partner are now partnering up together.
But
to survive.
Yeah, to survive the change.
and so we have to do that. I feel like that we have to do that, and whatever the blocks are, we have to just work past them. And it's exciting to do. The way you have to work through those type of blocks.
I wonder if we ever have considered the financial benefit of partnerships. That's something that I'm very passionate about, because when I worked in the mayor's office in Washington, D.C., one of the things that I specialized in is public and private partnerships, and even bringing together the departments in government for the first time, I seem to be at the front of a lot of new movements and new initiatives and even initiations for that matter. And so it was quite new for DC to do something called wraparound services. And that meant that there was a form of collaboration. And it was quite foreign to even departments in government to partner together. Now, of course, we're talking about a diverse group of people, but most of these departments in DC, unlike a lot of your cities, is led by what you all call African Americans or Black people. Neither title is appropriate, but either way, just for the sake of using the common language, they were headed by people of African American descent, and they oftentimes they didn't even know even how to do this from their point of view. And I learned so many lessons in looking at leadership, people with degrees who just didn't even know how to partner. And I wonder if we've gotten too comfortable. Let's put that on the table. We'll get to the piece about sororities. We'll get to the piece about colorism. We'll get to those pieces because they came up through us like so effortlessly last week. That's when it really got lit. Then we talked about the whole piece of the North and the South. The attitude of people in the North and the South is different, which is quite interesting to me because people in the North typically come from people in the Caribbean. People up north typically have a relationship with coming from the Caribbean. And so I say all that to say, is this new? Because we seem to have come from group economics. How else would we have survived some of the places that we come from? How is it we would have survived if we didn't have group economics? So anybody want to take on any of those points? How did we get here? That it seems like it's amnesia for us to, as women, to be able to be allies instead of compete with one another.
I'd like to offer my ideology around collaboration.
Okay, please do.
Said in my introduction that my businesses are built on collaboration, and that's because success in my mind is built comprehensively, right? Meaning we cover all the bases, and somewhere along the line we began to believe the thought that we could be all things to everything, and it's a misnomer. It's just not true. And I'm like Will Smith. I just love keeping really strong, intelligent, brilliant, innovative, successful people around me, and we resource amongst each other, and that's how we grow and we climb. And it doesn't match me not being willing to work with anybody else, because that means it stunts me. If I close the door or I build a wall for whatever reason, even though my objective or my intention is to be successful in this kind of way, it benefits me to be more open and receptive and be willing to get to know what you have to offer and how I can offer what you need so that we can build comprehensively. So I just wanted to share that. I don't really know the origin of when we stopped thinking that way, but Black folks are originally from the Deep South, even though I was raised in the Midwest, and I have some Caribbean root attached to my ancestors. And it was when I speak to them and learn more about my lineage, we wouldn't have it any other way, us working together, not only as family members, but then as neighbors, and then as community and as a culture, because that's just how success is built.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And would you consider yourself Generation X? How many people in the room are? Can you identify whether you're Generation X, you're a millennial, you're a baby boomer? And if you don't know, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm Generation X.
All right. CJ?
I'm Generation X as well.
Okay. Anybody else in the chat? On Facebook, who do we have watching? Generation X. See, we already know that not too many Generation Z or millennials are going to be watching this too much, because it's not titillating enough. You know, there's a short attention span, and that might be part of the issue, part of the problem. That's why I really do think that this is a conversation. We got a baby boomer in the house on Instagram. And one sister, Queen Divine, said, I don't know, I'm just a black sheep. And Brother Andrew Brown Brooks said he is Generation X as well. So come on, Facebook, get in on this chat. Because we know that Gen Z, they most of the time they're not going to stay long enough, unless, like I said, you drop in game and that type of thing. So let's break this down a little bit, because last week we said that the issue was crack. That's when it started to erode the fabric and the foundation of our communities. However, and I think I have some hands raised, so I'm trying to operate two devices here. I might not be doing this for too long on Instagram, but this is new, and I know people are trying to get in here. So let me see. Got a hand raised. It's open to everybody. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. If you raised your hand, go on and take your mic off and speak. Go ahead, Karen.
It doesn't look like she's on the stage yet.
There you go. You should be able to get right on up here.
No, I don't. I'm not sure where I am. I'm. Is it? What are the age things for baby boomers?
You're Generation X. So just because I know you, I can say.
Okay. Well, thank you. I didn't need to know.
Oh, that's very important as a grandmother, as a mother of Generation Z. You need to know that, because they all have personalities, and I'm so glad you were honest enough to say I don't know.
I feel like I need to know that if that's the language we're using, you know. But like I said, we started on this part last week when we were just saying that it definitely could have something to do with the crack epidemic and integration.
Integrate. Oh yeah, I agree with you. Integration is definitely a major. Thank you for reminding us about that. You're right. But you know, and isn't it ironic that we're being forced into a level of segregation right now? Isn't that ironic?
Yeah, it's like a different kind, but yeah.
Yeah. We also have a millennial in the house on Facebook. Shout out to Kirby. I appreciate you. And you're a different kind of millennial too, Kirby, because you've done spiritual work. Anybody else want to add a perspective to this? Now, last week we were talking about, I don't know what happened to Lloyd Strayhorn. I'm sure he can definitely tell us a lot about the time in the season. All right, we got another Gen X'er on here. What did you say, Yolanda?
I was going to add, because I was hoping he came back, but his partner in the astronumerology world is on, Kaya. And over the last couple of years, I cannot put in words how much Kaya and Lloyd have helped me understand the essence of just aligning with the sign of the time that just disintegrates all the grievances and all of the foolishness that really don't have nothing to do with building mountains out of molehills, right? And so even though Lloyd may not be with us, you can definitely call on Kaya, because she just as bright and brilliant.
Well, Kaya, you are on the stage now. Introduce yourself with your name and your business. I love that we have all of these diverse entrepreneurs in the house.
Peace, everyone. How you doing? Grand afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I myself, I believe I am a millennial baby. I was born in '88, so y'all got the youngs right here.
Oh yeah, you're a millennial.
Yeah. So I'm at the tail end of that. I might get the tail end and when it was transferring to the next age gap. So my name is Kaya French. I'm an astro-numerical analyst. I study the science of numbers, the frequency, vibrations, and the energy of it. So I consult people through the numbers. That's what I do. So that's what it is as a numerologist.
Do you have a perspective that you want to add?
Yeah, I did want to add, because you had the question about why are women's, why we're so like to one another, why we don't respect one another as like that, or what happened, what changed, right? I want to say everything always starts in the home. And it also goes back to how your mother talks to you too, or people around you. What was the conversation that was going on? So if your mother downplay you, then you probably never had that inspiring woman besides your mother to probably even uplift you, to make you feel like you were somebody, or feel like you were proud of who you are, or what kind of skills and gifts and talent. It was more so like the grandmas who have learned their lesson, who have experience, who are all the ones that's always want to see the best in you. No matter what happened or what obstacle, whatever how circumstances occur, they always there to make sure that you are on your feet.
Ooh, you're about to go deep, sis, and they always accuse me of being deep, and so I love that you brought that into the room, because we touched on it a little bit, but it's no way for women to not have this conversation and not touch on mother, and not touch on how we got a message. Because I said it last week, women who cannot trust other women, or who do not believe in trusting other women, usually have a breakdown with their mother. So thank you for bringing it in the room.
You're so welcome. I just think it's more about the communication line with the mother and how they treated you, because that's how you're going to be raised. If they had a good foundation, you know that they're going to be ones who are going to be ready to strive and get out there, get out there in the world and do something, make something of themselves. If you had a mother who was, bipolarism or whatever you want to call it, schizophrenic, she has some mentally challenged issue that she couldn't help herself with. We need to recognize these things. It ain't just me, you, your mama, your grandmama. We all got issues. It's how are we healing with our issues? Healing starts with releasing. That's a disease in our body. We have to release these things out of us. If we can't release these things, then it's still gonna be in there, in your body, bothering you. When things come up, you don't know how to handle it. So it's just those kind of things of what I feel, what I think.
Well, I do want to pull in the fact that we are using Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson as our base. And I do think that the spiritual talk is great, and I wonder too if religion has not been a culprit in doing a number on us, because it is a great divider. It's a unifier, and a lot of things definitely happen on our behalf in the Black church, but I wonder if it has been mentally divisive in terms of our relationship with the divine, and not just the divine in terms of church and tithing and that type of thing, but the divine in ourselves, in our family, and the way we used to ride for one another. And one of the things that Dr. Claude Anderson, and like his principles are so basic. The first floor that he says is group economics. Group economics, and that is where we started in this discussion. The first floor is group economics. And he talked about us doing business with one another and having ownership. Can we own something? I used to joke about people from New Orleans And you could say this for any one of your hoods. We love to say, oh, that's my city, oh, that's my block, oh, that's my crew, that's my this, but we don't own anything and we don't influence anything. But they're shooting and killing over my hood, my block. That there's so much more going on inside of us when we look at that pathology. So he talked about us doing business with each other, and not just hand-to-hand business, but real collaboration. One of the things that I see in a lot of women, particularly young women, is in my field of transformational work. A lot of people will go and take a class, a seminar, and say, oh, well, I can do that. I'm just going to create my own. We never look at how can I build with this person. Instead, we like to go and just replicate. And so now we got all these things. But when we look at other communities, they're very, very consistent. If you sell, they're very, very strategic. If you sell items that are for the grocery store, maybe I sell items that are for the hardware store. In other words, there is some strategy to group economics. So anyone want to talk about strategy? Not just because we could get real spiritual and real deep about but real strategy is what he talked about. He talked about having a code of conduct. So let's just talk about strategy and code of conduct a little bit. What do you all think that could be helpful for us in terms of women in our group economics?
For me, I feel like if we as women can all stay in our zone of genius, I feel like, and it's no different than grandma or my mom saying, if we're preparing the Thanksgiving meal, well, I'm not going to do pies because I don't do pies. I don't make the pies well. Normally that's someone else's task. So if you think about that, whether it's something as simple as basic as that, or a Sunday dinner, when you're gathering to prepare Sunday dinner, that's the same way I feel like we can strategize in our zone of genius. If I'm the numbers girl, I stick with the numbers. Unfortunately, I find that, to your point, where people would take a class, and if I'm the numbers girl, I should not be taking the class during for example, what Karen does. I can't take a class on edges and now say I know how to do hair. So that's where I find if we can just reset and level set and understand that we can work better together, it'll save us time, and it'll ultimately save us money, because we're trying to DIY our way into everything instead of honing in on each one of our zones.
Okay, so I'm going to recap. So you said use our zone of genius, and I like that you said instead of DIYing it, because that is also pathological. That we're going to DIY everything, and it can be born from a lack of trust, and that may be a pathology that has developed as a result of what has been happening. We can't discipline other people's children now, right? People curse you out for disciplining their children. Not in many circles I move in, but out in the world, children don't have that sense of connection now. So it's DIY, even with your own children. So I want to acknowledge that we have a voice of an elder, a sage, who I love and adore. And we have to celebrate each other and give each other roses. And so I'm super honored to have, I call him Dr. Lloyd Strayhorn in the room. And so I definitely yield the mic to you if there's something that you would like to add now to the discussion, because I know you're busy.
Well, I certainly am. And in fact, I first joined it when the room was not connected. You signed off and re-signed on, so I'm back. But the topic is very interesting in the sense that we, Black people, are a multi-trillion-dollar industry, which is why businesses, all kinds of businesses, can move into our communities, make a fortune, and just leave. So Claude Anderson's book, Powernomics, excuse me, Black Labor, White Wealth is another book they should get. And also a Black History Readers, 101 Questions That People Never Thought to Ask. We are a major engine in the economics, not only in voting, but also our dollars. So if you look at when Rosa Parks sat on the bus and said, I'm not getting up, and then what did the Black people do there? They did not get on that bus, and about a year later, that bus was out of business, okay? So if we can understand our economic power, know how to properly spend our money and where to spend our money, and women, by the way, are the economic engine anyway. Women actually have the purse strings to all the things. They know about budgets, bills, when things are due. And so I'm saying you women have more power economically than you can imagine. And as collectively, as black people, if we became conscious about how and where and who we spend our money with, you'll find that we won't be treated this way in the streets. Our men stopped by the police or whatever the case is. We would be totally treated different. Even in South Africa, the Soweto riots back in the 70s, when the people stopped spending money, they let Nelson Mandela out and a whole lot of other things. So obviously, here and around the world, at least European countries, they're all driven by the almighty dollar. And if we can become sophisticated other than spending our money to buy Gucci's and the latest cars, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we need to buy land. We need to buy other things that we can grow and prosper. But there is economic racism too. They will charge you higher on interest. They know that Black people, we are the highest consumer of brand new cars. And I mean, so we just have to be conscious now how that starts, where it starts. But the education, I think, has to start in the home. And Reverend Coach, I have to agree with you. There used to be a time if a parent says, boy, you better stop that. I'm going to tell your mother. I know that woman ain't know me, okay? But you won't take no chances. Nowadays, fast forward, now you say something to a kid will want to curse you out. You think they were adults. So there's a lot of things that needs to be kind of like tweaked and getting back on point. But economics is one of the major things. And once we come there, and by the way, with the churches, okay, some people think they can buy their way into heaven. You cannot. Your way into heaven comes by your actions, your deeds toward humanity, toward others, the love of self, not a way giving your whole purse string from people. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll shut my mouth now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you bringing the statistics, because that is a great way for us to anchor the conversation. Women are very key when we talk about even marketing. When the industrial society wanted to convince women who were staying at home right after the war, they geared their marketing towards women in order to sell products, and that's just all women. And so if their marketing was geared towards women, in order, when you look at Spick and Span, Aunt Jemima, they put women on the front of these products because women influence their husbands, even if they were stay-at-home moms, to buy those products. Now, at that time, those demographics were were white women, white American women. And when you study other authors, womanist authors, not feminist authors, and we don't celebrate enough of our womanist authors like Dr. Renita Weems, and Lord have mercy, The Color Purple. Help me out, y'all. She's the one
Alice
Walker, who actually created the term and challenged the whole idea of feminism, because we, in our homes, we worked with our men. We had no choice but to work with our men. Now we have a whole different language in the culture when it comes to our men. And so the idea of collaboration with men, there's a level of distrust there, and that was initiated through the feminist movement, who were not even thinking about us when we look at this. So I appreciate you putting in the stats, because marketing is still driven to women abroad, and then there's marketing that is driven towards women. And when we say we're hard on each other, we will spend money to go into a room with other women. I'll be quite honest with you, you all. I was just invited to a celebrity affair, and I'm in my year in white. In your year in white, as a priest, you don't wear any makeup, and your clothing is basic, for the most part. And I was going to go. I mean, she begged me to come. She was like, "Come, just come. Oh, just come." I told her I was in white. "Oh, just come." And then I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute. This is going to be a certain kind of affair. I think I better stay at home. One, because I knew I was entering into the mindset of first impressions. So I say all that to say that many of us, we show up in rooms to impress each other, and because of the criticism. You know how our mothers told us, "You better not go out of this house and shame me." It showed up in so many messages that we have received about each other when it's time for us to show up with each other. And so when did we become consumers only, and not the one that's driving the economy, the marketplace woman? Because in Africa, the marketplace woman is still the anchor in the community. Just like we talk about Jewish communities, we talk about Italians, we talk about Asian and Chinese communities, and the mother is the primary influence in that family. So when did we start to become inferior in our relationship to ourselves? I think it became an American and Christian, Judeo-Christian philosophy, versus when we look at indigenous cultures who learn from us. Anyone else?
I definitely agree that to all of that. And as it relates to the times now, a solution for me, working with group economics as a base of how I work, I had to learn, and you were teaching this the other day, Rev Coach, that there's different phases that businesses go through that are just organic phases. And one of them, as you described, is stormy, is going to come. It's going to, things kind of shift and change, and that tends to catch a lot of us up. And so we have to learn better skills, the soft skills of communicating and listening and talking from our heart and things of that nature, and not taking things so personally, so that we can continue the mission. And I want to thank my dear friend Lloyd and Kaya, because they helped me with that a lot. They helped me learn me and how I energetically was showing up based on what was going on in my life, so that I know when I'm bringing stuff that I can pull back on and heal and deal with. And I know when other people are bringing stuff, and I know how to sort of get out of the way so I can stay focused on the mission. And the mission is to continue building and to continue rising, to continue scaling, and to manifest the levels of success that we collectively and individually within the collective desire. The real reason why we came to get involved with each other in the first place. But a lot of times that's not the easy process, and a lot of times people jump ship when things start feeling prickery or shifty.
That's so true.
So I wanted to add that.
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of tolerance when in terms of dealing with one another. One thing goes wrong with a business, and it's like, oh, forget you. Where it's real easy. And then as a business owner, we do have to be willing to receive feedback in terms of our willingness to serve one another, and that is an issue of the heart. I do appreciate you saying that. Now, when we talk about group economics, right, one of the things, the elephants in the room, and Dr. Claude Anderson definitely talked about it in the clips that I played last week. You would think that he would, some people will say, oh, that's a racist philosophy. But when we talk about group economics, does it involve other nationalities? Of course, I have a idea, but I want anyone else to jump in. Do you think it's racist for us to talk about just doing business with our own?
I don't think so. Every other ethnic group looks out for themselves. If you look in the Jewish, Asian, white communities, the dollar bill is circulated within that community about 4 to 5 or 6, even 7 times before it leaves. In our community, normally the circulation is 1 time. So I don't think there's anything wrong. If they can look out for themselves, perhaps we need to take a page and begin to look out for ourselves too, and make sure that dollars are circulated more often in our communities. And perhaps our situation will improve, because we as Black people in our community, we're really starving in the midst of plenty.
Ooh, say that again.
We, Coach Rev Coach, we are starving in the midst of plenty, which is why everybody can come into our communities across this nation, from the West Coast to the East Coast, you name it, from north to south, spend money, and we go into these stores, spend money, and we leave our pennies. In my book, I have a chapter called The Power of the Penny. That if you took a penny and you doubled that penny, Coach, every day for 30 days, you'll wind up with millions of dollars on the back end. So imagine if we had to begin to pick up these pennies we see in the street, as Kai Prince was talking about one of her gratitude classes the other day, about picking up those pennies. No, we leave those pennies. Most of these items in these stores in our communities, the items are 99 cents. We give them $1 and leave. These are tens of thousands of transactions every day across this nation in our community, where we get mystified about 2 or 3 years later, while that same store has now built, reconstructed, expanded, more product based upon us leaving those pennies. So imagine if we had just a penny conscious. That's called the $10 million mistake that we make. Just that alone.
Wow. Thank you for that. I appreciate you adding that.
And I want to also offer, I was just having this conversation with my daughter in the grocery store yesterday. We were in Kroger, and there's a kosher section, right? Then we went down a couple more aisles, there was an Asian section. Then there was a Caribbean section. So to answer your question, my answer is absolutely there's nothing wrong with us creating our own section for our community, so that is culturally designed for us, by us, so that we can be well, knowing that there was love in those transactions, because that's all they're creating in their cultural circles that they have, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that doesn't keep us from co-creating together. But no, it's nothing wrong with us doing business for us, with us, by us, because we know us.
Right. I agree.
I agree. And if I can interject,
can I chime in on something?
Right. Wait a minute, Karen. CJ is speaking. Go ahead, CJ, and then you, Karen.
Okay. So what I was going to say is, I also agree. And the reason why I can say that is we have to be so intentional, because right now the median of Black wealth is $19,000. Well, one would say, what is she talking about? I make over 6 figures. I make over 7 figures. No, I'm saying your wealth, your net worth, your assets, assets equals liabilities plus your equity. When you add all of that together, right now, currently, it's $19,000. And the stats predict by the year 2053, it's going to be zero.
That's what Dr. Anderson said.
Absolutely. So when Dr. Anderson mentioned that in the book, he also gave color to the fact that you can go to any city and you'll see Chinatown, you'll see Little Italy. I absolutely do not think there is not one problem with us working together and building our own.
Thank you. Go ahead, Karen.
I think Brother Lloyd was saying something about our having multi-million-dollar community, but to someone else. And what now we do have, since this era now, the pandemic, we have a lot of new business owners, a lot of new business owners, but it's not brick and mortar. And so that's what's different now. It's a whole bunch of them, but we ain't living in the same neighborhood. We ain't in the same community as we were when we were young. And so we did have to buy from the Jews that were there. The Jews had the grocery store, and you can have credit with them. We always had favors from someone else outside of us. And now we do have more businesses now, but they're online or something like that. So so how do we change that? Now we have that dynamic. How can we do that again? How can we build the business community? Does it have to be online, or can we really start buying up from them?
Well, yeah. Well, now we have the factor of the metaverse to consider, but I think that all of that is just a distraction with this whole idea of artificial intelligence that is becoming so popular. Do you know that? Mute yourself out, Karen, please, just for the background noise. You all know that there are literally spaces for sale in the metaverse right now, and that they're expecting to sell spaces in the metaverse the same way they're looking to sell property. Do you all know that this man, Zuckerberg, has bought over 100 acres of land? Like, are we really paying attention to what's going on? And this is another thing that that really educated me for Dr. Claude Anderson, when he says sometimes we think that the white man's water is wetter and sweeter and everything else. And he said, but we have to know a little bit about the history of economics, that they received hundreds of acres of our land, of indigenous people's lands, for free. Do you all know that we were classified as white? White is a status that they usurped. So now we have when I started off saying African American, Black, that's how you change people's identity and redistrict them, and you don't even know it because the land was stolen in the first place. So when we start talking about our spirituality, yeah, we can detox, yeah, we can cleanse, yeah, we can talk all of this spiritual talk. We're the most spiritual people on the planet. We hold the spiritual grid and energy inside of us, but yet we don't know the basics of economics because we don't even know who we are in terms of asking for our land rights. When we look at what's happening right now, even with this whole pandemic, we think it's a medical issue, and it's not a medical issue. It's an economic issue. It's a bioweapon issue. And not only that, if we really understood what was happening with this and the messenger of depopulation, the messenger of depopulation, because there's a certain timeline on one. Oh Lord, am I going too far? Somebody tell me, come back, Latanya, come back. If I need to. When we look at what's happening, has anybody heard of Sara Josera Law? Anybody in the room heard of Sara Josera Law?
I just read on it a little bit because you have mentioned it several times, and I started on it, and my. Okay.
It was just like watching 12 Years a Slave again.
What did you learn about Sara Josera Law for the room?
Kind of like the setup from the beginning was not in favor of us. You know, it's just the whole setup. I can relate to that with in this book, the first chapter is kind of talking about that. You know, how the plan already was set up. I don't want to say set up against us. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess some people go that far to say set up against us, but it wasn't for us. It didn't have us in mind.
Okay.
The economy of the country. It just, you know, chapter 1, I'm going to tell you the truth. Chapter 1 kind of sits it down. Okay. Chapter 1. Mm-hmm.
All right. But, mm-hmm. Well, I do encourage, I don't want to take it off of Powernomics, but it's very important for us to also know about things that work in our favor. And the Sara Josera is something that is about what happened. It started with the conversation with the farmers and what happened to small farmers with this industrial farming and how they were pushed out of their land. But also there is a woman. Now pronouncing her name is quite difficult, so I'm going to call her Queen Bey. She found her land rights, got the documentation to the land rights, went to the UN, the United Nations, to prove that we were the indigenous people via the Louisiana Purchase. And showed, and when we say Louisiana Purchase, you all, we're not talking about just Louisiana as we know it. Everything has been redistricted in the United States. Louisiana was considered the landmass that included Mississippi. When the whole idea of Native American tribes was something that came after they did the divide and conquer of the tribes. We were empires. We were not in just broken down into these tribes as we know them now. We were empires. She showed the proof and said, you owe my people like, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, if the number goes to like quadrillion. And that is something that she fought for. Now physically she's said to be no longer with us, but I will go as far as to say I'm learning that a lot of people we think that are no longer with us have had to go into hiding because of the knowledge that they have. So I'll stop there because I don't want to go too far from Powernomics, but perhaps what if it's possible that we don't have to fight as hard as we need to learn who we are and be able to access our land rights.
Yes, can I speak on something?
Sure. And then their brother Andrew came to the stage. He's been waiting for a moment. Did you want to share or say something, Brother Andrew, right before, and then you, Kaya? We're talking about women in groups, but this still is economic development.
I think it's a good conversation.
Okay.
That's a lot of different turning points to it. But what I will say is simply this. You know, I think that the important thing going forward in the 21st century, we have come from a lot of nuances from culturally being very culturally cohesive, even in the midst of a lot of adversities and things of this nature. But if we look at that exists about our culture that we don't really know about, and one of the things that I think is very powerful is we need to become very good students of knowledge first, because I think the idea behind the family and the culture is there are two different realities that we live in. There is the reality that's going on. I'm from Chicago, so I kind of preface it from that point. There are two different realities that go on simultaneously, and it was interesting that I kind of saw it. Now that I got older, I kind of saw it. There's this group of African Americans that were well-to-do, doctors, lawyers, politicians, thought leaders from the North and the South. And then you also had a segment of African Americans that were in projects, right? And certain parts of the city, while there were African Americans who were presidents of banks, and we were doing large black business. There were also African American families who were, on welfare, on assistance, and it didn't make it right or wrong. What it did do was, I think both of the families had. I think the people culturally had a great aspiration for goals and family values, family culture. Being able to go down the street. That's Leroy's son. You Leroy's son. I know who you are. You shouldn't be doing that. And okay, well, that's Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, I apologize. I'm gonna go up the street, and take care of this business and kind of govern myself accordingly. But I think what I saw and experienced was that there were in our family where I had an aunt who was a multimillionaire, and I had family members who owned property. That information of owning property didn't get sold into my mind, and where I was watching where certain of the elders were kind of doing well to do, had their own, their own cliques playing cards and so forth and so on, and that kind of thing, into the wee hours of the night doing their thing. There was still this aspiration of my mom working for my uncle who owned the business and managed his restaurant. But the tier between the owner and the worker dynamic was not. There was no education or transference of knowledge. And so in the culture, what we have is an issue with knowledge, right? It's a transference of knowledge. It's the Bible says, "My people perish for the lack of knowledge."
Yeah, thank you for that.
You follow me? They perish for the lack of knowledge. And so what happens is, individually and collectively, I think we all have a responsibility, right? I've been blessed I'm a first-generation college graduate, first-generation military officer, but I'm third-generation military, right? And I'm first-generation to really pick up this entrepreneurial endeavor, right? Because I'm trying to pick it up from, I've worked for a lot of companies, but this entrepreneurial endeavor I'm really passionate about, because I didn't know that my grandfather was a farmer in Utica, Mississippi, who has 2 roads named after him, and he did excellent farming business, from horses, cattle, chickens, hogs, soybean, greens, corn. Like he was a real big deal, and it was in the same South where you had segregation.
Yeah.
How does this guy get to be 2 roads named after him in notoriety? And then there are people that's going through segregation and they marching. And I'm trying to figure out how that was. And my mom said that he treated everybody. He would help people. That was his takeaway. He would help people. So when people were at disadvantage, he would help them.
Mm-hmm.
And because he helped them, he sowed seeds of where he operated in the principle, right? Matthew 6:38, right? If you give, it'll be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, round over, men will give it to your bosom. But it wound up blessing somebody. And I think what has to happen collectively as we come back to the basis of it, because we could really have it at a high level and really macro this conversation, but I think in value of time, I think what has to happen is, and what I've started doing is I've taken accountability in my own family.
I agree.
Right? And I've started shaping the destinies of my family. So I had a cousin who, when she was a nurse, and I was going through a traumatic rehabilitation, and she was dating a young man, and I knew she was a nurse. I was like, "What is this all about? What are you up to? What are you doing?" And I pulled her to the side and kind of took her on an exposure journey. She was hanging out with me, and she was like, "Wow." And then when I was living in downtown Chicago, and I kind of sent all the girls on a shopping spree, gave them $300 and just go shopping up and down Michigan Avenue. And the way she responded, she said, "I didn't even know this exists. I thought the world existed somewhere else." And all of a sudden now today, she called me. She's like one of the assistant chiefs for the Veterans Administration. It's the ability for us to sow, right? We have to sow into the culture. And if we sow into the culture will heal because of exposure. But if we don't sow into the culture, right, we're going to have this continued conversation, and we won't move forward. This clock is ticking. and we have drug dealers and folks of this nature and that kind of thing. But those guys are our new engineers, right? Those guys really are better than Jeff Bezos. They are the Amazons,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're very calculated in distribution, very calculated in finance, right? Those guys are the Warren Buffetts because they understand money, they understand distribution, they understand systems. So I'm just simply saying that, and lastly, for my ladies, listen, the government spend $1.4 billion every day with business. They're looking for business, right? Like they're looking for business. And Rev Coach, like I appreciate you. You've been on my site. You come out, we talk a little bit. And I appreciate your support. So I want to add some value to your platform. The government spends $1.4 billion every day. They have 5% allocated of business to do business with women-owned business. And so when we start talking about business and economies of scale, right, a part of the thing that we're thinking about, you could, it's like being in the kitchen with your grandmother and you really need to learn how to really get this Thanksgiving dinner down pat, right? But the Thanksgiving dinner doesn't start on Sunday. The Thanksgiving dinner starts on like Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean, the planning process is already happening when November happens already. Like she's already understanding what's happening, what needs to happen. And so the strategy for executing that meal is already thought about, like it's already planned out. And I think what happens in business, or I think what happens in families, right? Or I think what happens even when we're talking about our own parents, right? Is what we don't do enough of intrinsic planning. We don't think about it in the long game.
That's true.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't think about it. The Thanksgiving dinner, even though the process is laborious, but the takeaway for the Thanksgiving is to bring the generations together,
right?
And the stories, right, and the laughter and that kind of thing, and that's where the value is. And I think what I'm encouraging us to do, is really step back for a second and probably go into this week, like it's going to end on 31st Monday, right? So we're on the 26th. We have 5 days, right? So the next 5 days, just take one element every day, right, and just kind of address it and really get out to the meat of the matter. So, how can I shape this differently? Like, what did I learn? How can I shape this differently? And what am I going to do this year to really make an impact? And how you will handle that over these next 5 days is going to be vitally important to the outcome of what will happen in this first quarter. Right, because you get 90 days in the first quarter, so you're gonna get 60 more to work the details out. It doesn't take long to work it out, but the ideal of it is, I just believe that there's just so much more value to what we do. But what happens is, there's a 4-letter word that exists, and it's called fear, and it has us hanging around the peripherals of our life, and it really is like it's cancerous, right? It's cancerous because what it does is it not only impacts us. Right, and it not only impacts our dialogue, right, but it impacts our vision, right. And so then even though I may make $100,000, right, but I won't even go back to my alma mater and sow into the alma mater.
Oh, you walking heavy now, Andrew.
Well,
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. You in the pocket. You're in the pocket.
If I'm gonna spend my time, I gotta spend my time adding value. I mean, I'm gonna teach a class in about another hour. But the ideal of it is that I've paid what it costs to have this conversation. So I'm not gonna buckle down for me. And I'm 85% of my family is women. So I do this. This is a regular deal. I have 2 daughters, right? And the ideal of it is that even when I talk to my mom and I'm thinking about my mom, I feel my mom. And I feel her journey. I feel the impact of her parents, divorcing. I feel that thing, man. And even though they made that transition, I feel how she wants to save her family. right? And what's happening next, and how she looks at my oldest sister and how she looks at my baby sister, right? And she loves us all. But the reality of it is she thinks about her children. And I think, you know, I think the idea behind it is that we have to really be able to spend some time with the elders and really just get behind the story.
I agree. I don't want you to go anywhere, but you said a mouthful, and
I said a mouthful, but I hopefully it's cohesive. I think at the end of the day, all I just want to tighten it up and just say at the end of the day, you know, let's really get to the basis.
I agree.
Of us individually, you know, where we are individually, right? Even just individually where we are. What are the smaller things that we're dealing with that we can really touch, right? Because if we can touch those things, that we really can do some housekeeping around. If I get empowered, right, Rev, you get empowered, Karen, Kaya, Yolanda, Chiquita, if they get empowered, then all of a sudden now we got this little massive movement, and we have we're similarities and likeness. Why? Because we got successes about some things that we need to break through from.
Well, I want to introduce something to that point. Last week we touched on this, and this is why we're doing it, because the mother is the first teacher. And when we talk about universal law, the mother also is first cause. And so you just brought us full circle right back to the conversation around healing. Because when we start talking about the family business, we cannot talk about the family. And you're right. You are absolutely right. When we can't, but many of us are being forced to do business with other people who are our family by choice because of the breakdown in our families. Now we got to talk about this, right? Because like you, I am one of the first entrepreneurs in a long time. I won't say I'm first generational, because like you said, as I sit down with the elders, I'm learning that there were other entrepreneurs in my family. But if I didn't sit down with the elders, I would not have a reference point. Of course, I'm also a minister, and not a traditional one, for those who are used to traditional ministers and cringe at the idea of being in the room with one. But I still am a cultural custodian, and we don't have that type of relationship. And so I do think what you just offered is valuable to the room and everyone listening, particularly as we wrap up on Facebook, and we can keep going on Clubhouse. But the family business means that we have to also do our inner work to be fortified to deal with the rejection. And the way I deal with the rejection is I hustle a little harder. Now I do represent more of a hustle-free business model, but that drives me, because I understand that my family is a show me family. They don't listen to you till you have something to give them. Now, am I by myself in that? Anybody else?
No. It's absolutely not. It's the real deal. You know, they want you to produce the fruit. You know what I mean? And I think you're 100% right. And one of the things I just say this, and I got to yield the mic because I got to get ready for my 2 o'clock class. I'll be on Facebook as well, the Kingdom First Network Global. I'll be moderating a 2 o'clock session called 2022, the year of the breakthrough. So I invite you to come by, hang out with me. I'm going to talk about something real cool today called the covenant. But the idea of it is that what I think most Rev Coach is important is not only do we get the fruit, but you know what's really cool is to see somebody in the process.
I agree. I agree. We are reactive, but it's something alchemical happening when we do what you're doing, Andrew, what I'm doing, what many people who are on this stage are doing. My sister CJ just found out she has land in her family. And, and as a cultural custodian who definitely believes in ancestor veneration, if we don't know how to do the alchemical work, there is information in our bloodline that, because many of us, this is the part where we've been so churched that we're so afraid to do anything that's going to activate our DNA and find that we get information that starts to come to us. Now, Andrew, I do have to get Kaya in. Thank you for sharing. And I see Brother Hakeem came in, and my sister, Dr. Tosh, just came in, and she is all the way live from Africa. And so we're going to keep going on Clubhouse. I'm going to refresh the room, allow those of you all who have just joined to add your value to the room, share your name, your business, and the perspective that you want to jump in on. So Kaya, go ahead. Thank you so much, Andrew.
I'm going to be brief. It's just three things because you brought up about unity, and then Lloyd had mentioned something as well too. I just wanted to mention for my age group, I'm born in '88, so I have wise women, and I was brought up with, and I was introduced to Islam at a very early age. So back to the unity part was I wanted to talk about how in Islam, that the women, they would teach you how to sew, teach you how to clean, teach you how to cook, teach you how to wear for a husband or prepare you for a husband. They were giving you the foundation that you needed as a woman, and even for the man, as for the brothers, that they would give you that foundation there. So that was like unity to me. Growing up, for me, that was unity. And then I wanted to also relate on, and then not only that, they taught you to do for self, and they had a business. Like I think when Malcolm X was starting to change, he had business starting in New York. People were sewing, it was cooking, it was cleaning. It was a whole shebang bang of things. Black people owning things and also buying from one another, circulating the money in the neighborhoods and in the communities. Then I want to go to a good prime example of where we are today as far as hidden figures. We in a 2020 year, was just with the women being on the forefront of the line and hidden figures. They were working. They were on as computers, right? And the boss, what was her name? The boss of them, the supervisor. They were going. She saw they bring in the IBM, right? So she went to the library and got a book and started studying the book. And not only she studied the book, she taught her women, because if we didn't do this, we'd be out of a job. So that means we'll be out of a job, out of houses, and everything. But she made sure, as a unity for women, that they were taught these skills so they can keep their jobs. So that's what I think will come to unity, and how skilled we are as women. We have that power. That man did not go on the moon because the IBM was wrong for 3 days in a row. Mm-hmm. He wasn't going on there until Catherine said the number was right. So that's how much power you get. If a woman can send a man to a moon, what you think you can do?
Come on now. All right. So Hakeem, if you can introduce yourself to the room, and don't forget to follow all of the speakers here and those who have introduced their businesses. I want to do a recap before Hakeem comes up of who you are and what you do. We have our esteemed special guest, Yolanda Niels, who represents Iwi Fresh Farms here in Atlanta, which is a collaborative of health and wellness professionals. We have what I call our tribe accountant, not residential, our tribe accountant, who always brings us a game when it comes to getting into relationship with our numbers, who has a program up and coming called Mad Money, so that women can know how to get their stash together. But mad is not the traditional mad and anger and bitterness that we have made moves in, but to making accounting divine. That's where we have a stylist hailing in from Vicksburg, Mississippi, who is owning a brick and mortar building right in the downtown area. If you know anything about Vicksburg, it's still a big deal for her to be having such a posh location in the Deep South. Come on now. We got some powerhouses in the room. We have Kaya, who is new to me, but she is what I hear, a protege of Dr. Lloyd Strayhorn, astronumerologist on the stage. And now, Hakeem, we have you, brother. Come on in. And Andrew, and Dr. Tosh, we're going to get to you. Andrew, say your business again, and please.
Breakthrough Publishing. It's a leadership and publishing firm.
All right now. See, we need to pass and transfer knowledge. All right, Hakeem, go ahead.
Hey family, I'm just listening. I follow Lloyd Streethorn and Kaya. So when I seen them in the room, the room, I gravitated to the room and I'm listening. I'm loving the conversation. I want to go back to something you said a little while ago when you was talking about. I want to bet you back when you said, should we, worry about us first instead of spending money with other nationalities? I definitely think that we are at the point where we have to spend our money with only us. Since not only us, but what I want to say is like, because you were talking about Powernomics, a beautiful book. And, one thing I would like to say to the room is like, we spend so much money for one industry with the Koreans and the hair products and the nails and all of that. And I want to say to the queens that I don't know how, but we're going to have to find out how to infiltrate that industry.
Yeah.
Because all the money that our sisters are spending in these hair product stores or getting their nails done or their feet done and all of that, if our sisters was to take that industry and did that amongst us, that's so much money right there that's already generating within our communities. We give the money away to them. They do not invest back into our communities, into our people or anything. They just take your money and go. People complain about black businesses or this, that. But when you spend money with other people, they don't treat you like you the best thing in the world neither. So I just want to say we definitely have to find a way to infiltrate that industry right off the top. Because, we just giving our money to everybody. Everybody, I don't want to be too controversial, but every immigrant group can come in and they can open a corner store or whatever. We just go spend all our money with all these people that we'll never see this money again. Because they take the money, they're going to take it back to their country, or they're going to just, keep on furthering their agenda, and we just keep losing out.
Yeah, that's colonization. That's what they do. They come in and take the land and give us a Bible. So that's why I don't know why we don't want to be controversial. I don't understand why we need to look at the things that are handicapping us mentally, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. And we have a church on every corner and a bar. And so why is it that I want to know one question to the room. Dr. Claude Anderson has been teaching this for years. And I'll start with myself. I am Generation X and I didn't pay attention. I am just now coming into the level of knowledge of strategy, economic development. And it's not because I wasn't around the Kaya. I was in the Nation of Islam. I learned about do for self. I watched us open businesses, but I cannot say that we were, even when I was in the nation, that we were strategic about really teaching other people how to do it. And so I have to go back to what Andrew said. We have to do a transfer of knowledge, which is why I do what I do for women and with women, because if the mother of civilization is disconnected from her money and her relationship with money, she is the first teacher. How in the world are we going to change our communities? Not only is she disconnected with money, but she's disconnected with money because she's disconnected from herself. But that's also a bit of another room that we need to talk about that in. So
I agree, Coach, with you. They didn't teach us the strategies. We need to continue the business.
Right. Absolutely. Because in the nation, in the first rise under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they did have everything that we needed. And, Killer Mike, a rapper, talks about this. He said, if we talk about divesting ourselves, he even had a show of people who are conscious and revolutionary. Yeah, but how many of us, do we have our own water supply? Do we make our own toilet tissue? Can we provide ourselves with lights? Do we even want to have Andrew talked about farm. Last week we talked about farms. What happened to us when we went to college to get the degrees and now we don't want to have a relationship with farming? We looked down upon the sharecroppers in our family. Some of us did because we didn't know any better. And I like you, didn't recognize how much wealth existed in my own family when it comes to knowing how to grow our own food and how to handle the land. I grew up going to a family farm with a well. Now I want it. Now I want it again. I don't want to have anything to do with the suburbs that have been planned out.
And Red, let me say this one thing. I was in a near fatal auto accident during my military career. And it took me 2 years to learn how to walk and talk again. And my dad's from Mississippi. I have a lot of family from Mississippi. But
Mississippi's in the house today.
Yeah, Mississippi. You better watch your mouth. Mississippi in the house. Highway 27, Crystal Springs, Mississippi.
What? We might be related, Andrew.
In Jackson down there. But one of the things that my dad did that turned the corner for me, and this is not a man, he's got Socratic wisdom, but he doesn't have a lot of advanced degrees, but he moves and shakes in a lot of different places. And he took me to the Department of Records and Deeds. And he said, you need to look up your family history.
Yep.
And I spent 3 days. Once I started researching, he was giving me the names, giving me the stories, and we were there. We went down there for 3 days. From the time they opened, 8 to 5. We spent all day down there looking at the history. Family owned water, they own oil, they own gas. He told me the stories about when the Klan was coming down there and how the grandmother was running the show and then how they had a shootout. And he said the grandfather went down to the city, said, and the guy said, is there a problem? He said, no, is there a problem? You know what I mean? It was like real clear. You know, it wasn't no problem. And my aunt was telling me about how they carried books from Hazelhurst all the way to Crystal Springs. And the superintendent said, as many books as you can carry, that's what you can have. And they carried so many. In Hazelhurst, Mississippi, in Crystal Springs, quite some distance. But it's not like it is today. Imagine that they had to come through the wood line. Yeah, we go down there and travel on roads and stuff, but they was on wood line. They was walking through the woods with these books and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I think what has to happen is we have to have just a really come to Jesus intellectual moment, and we just got to say, you know what? I thank God for my degree. I thank God for everything He's given me. I'm really so appreciative. I'm super excited. But what I really need to have is that intentional fortitude and that mindset reset.
Yeah.
We are all accountable for the next generation of our family. And whether we like it or not, your generational legacy depends on your ability to function right now today. So this conversation that you have in Rev Coaching, we add value to this conversation. This conversation right now is going to be one of the most pivotal moments in your life. You're going to look back on this day. It's January 26th on a Wednesday at 1:26 p.m. And you're going to look back on this moment and you're going to say, you know what? I remembered that Andrew came on there. Rev Coach had that platform. We talked about collaboration. And I'm telling you, it is very pivotal. Everything I'm doing from this point forward has to do with the legacy. Like everything has to do with the legacy. Even the land down there we inherited and still hasn't been down there, been cultivated.
Yep.
Like everybody, all of us got land and stuff. So when you start talking about, I mean, I remember Spike Lee was talking about 40 acres in the mule, but when you actually get down to the meat of the matter, and you go down there, and I'm at HBCU. I started my college career at HBCU. I didn't finish there, but I'm a historically black college university student.
Yeah.
And when you go and you actually do the legwork and do a little bit of the research, man, you'd be surprised what you have. We actually have more wealth than we actually think about. But if we don't come out of the comfort zone, if we don't come out of our cultural
Instagram,
bias,
I'm going to go on and end the live. Thank you all for tuning in. Join us on Clubhouse, please. Follow me on Rev Coach CEO. Jump on Clubhouse. Download the app. You're not being censored on Clubhouse as much as you are on Facebook and Instagram. Join us on Clubhouse. Thank you.
This is an honor. Pleasure to meet everyone, Dr. Rev Coach, everybody. I love y'all. I love you with all my heart. I just share with it from sincerity because it took me. I was a 10-90% chance to live as a result of that accident that I had in my military career. I have 60 screws in my body. There's 40 in my skull, 7 in my mouth, and 13 in my hip. It took me 2 years to learn how to walk and talk again. I'm an award-winning author, all of that. But none of that means anything If I cannot move the culture, my family, make the impact I need, and be empowering to change somebody's life, and I've been able to do that, so that's why I can speak with such clarity, just real smooth about it. And I'm still on the mission for it. But the idea about it is just each one of us have a responsibility. And I just want to encourage you, as in the pursuit of your dream, to understand that dream matters, because that dream empowers somebody else's dream to keep moving this conversation, keep moving this reality, keep moving these blessings down the road, so that our life does matter.
Ashe, right. Thank you so much. I appreciate the value you brought. Remember to follow Andrew and all of the other speakers. Dr. T, you made it to the room today, girlfriend. Come on in the room. We are started this conversation talking about women and groups. Are women harder on one another? The conversation of our mother came up. The whole in our relationship with woman to woman, and our ability to do business together instead of collaborating over competition. And Andrew came back and brought us right back to the family business. So we're right back at mama again. So I wanted to get your voice and introduce folks to who you are, what you do, and share whatever is on your heart, beloved.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So first, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm telling y'all, I've met a sister that I didn't know I had. You know, I'm telling you right now, I connect with you. And first, before I talk about who I am, because that really doesn't matter, I want to get this transmission really fast. It's going to take me about 60 seconds, and then I'll tell y'all who I am, which is actually boring. But I'll call planet Earth this experiment zone, and some of us are antiquity, right? And we come through her womb to place our feet on her orbit in order to restabilize her. So when you talk about some of us having to get back into this sort of alchemical practice and activate the lands and to retrieve our lands, this is what we should be doing. And if you see people around us, we're getting to alignment, right? We're coming into alignment, and this is what we're doing. We are our ancestors' spiritual successors, and we should be making deposits into the noosphere, into the atmosphere, and into the vital sphere, as well as into this prophetic lineage, right? That will act as a transmission to the coming star seeds. And so what they see us do, the posture that we take in this time, is what's going to forge us forward, right? And now in this time, we have an energy that is acclaimed to us, right? And the reason why we have this energy is because we have moved from the biosphere into the noosphere. This is the fifth dimensional realm of consciousness. And so if we could just have the posture of receiving, right? The posture of receiving, we're going to get what's due to us. We're going to get what's due to us. And so we can talk about economics and connection, but really what it's about is the posture of receiving and continuing to say yes. Our yes is what's going to push us into tomorrow. Our yes has us into the future already. I'm looking at every last one of y'all, and I can just see powerhouses. I was just talking to my sister who's here right now. Her name is Empress Nairobi, about her posture in the world. And her posture right now is to breathe into what is being given to us, right? We actually have access to something right now that our ancestors did not have access to, okay? And that is an energy, right? That is a dream spell. We're being codified in an energy, right? That the Mayans was codified in. They called them the civilization of illusion, because they give you the illusion that they disappeared from Earth, but they're still here. We're still here.
My God.
Okay? So in that sense, I will tell you that all of this activation that we're doing, everything is going to activate, right? But the illumination is where we're at right now, right? And this is the power, and this is what we hold the line. And we don't have to worry about the old economics, because we have ushered in the new economics, okay? And so now when we align ourselves with powerhouses such as yourself, such as Yolanda and all of the other men and women that are here, we're vast sentient beings, and we come back to the planet Earth in order to align it back with its purpose, okay? The purpose is to be aligned with the universe. And once we get that in our spirit and we forge forth with that, we will bring those things to pass. Now, I am Dr. Toshiba Haynes. I am a quantum doctor. I have my PhD in quantum medicine, and that doesn't really matter. It was just a vehicle to get me to where I am today, to get me to my yes, to get me to my healing, and to get me to the illumination that's happening here in the world today. So thank you so much for having me.
My God. You came in the room to start something. I've really been sitting over here trying to be a good old facilitator, but Lord have mercy. Y'all don't even understand how this is like I love the Divine Mother, because she always chooses my sisters. When I meet a cosmic galactic sister, we time hop. So it doesn't even matter how long we've known each other, because we know that we've known each other in many lifetimes before. And I thank you for the bold language that you use to take us higher when it comes to womanhood. Because when we talk about the Divine Mother, and we talk about economic development, it is, and I wonder if Dr. Claude Anderson's if his proposal now has expired a bit because of the time that we're in. And that is why I introduced the Sara Josera Law, because Sara Josera is not just a tactical implementation waiting for the government to save us. It is also us being able to understand who we are spiritually and socioeconomically and also cosmically. So I thank you for bringing that into the room. So wow. What a power. Like, that just opened up a whole nother portal in the room. And so I welcome all of you. I encourage you to follow one another. And if there's anyone who wants to come to the stage that hasn't spoken, anyone on the stage who wants to share after that. Nope, she closed the room. Oh.
I want to say that I was in the book reading group, and we read Powernomics. And the first thing we had to get over is, we said, man, this book is 20 years old. We are way behind time. But I want to say that I think we're in the perfect time. I think we're in a great time right now where we're awakened. You know, I don't know how many people deal with astrology, but we're in the age of Aquarius. This is the awakening. So I think, you know, we are in a time where we can do anything that we want to do. And I think we're going to do it because there's a lot of people that's already awake. Thank you. And yeah, it's just beautiful time, man. I mean, and let me say this about black women, black men coming together. We're in a cleansing time right now. We're in a time where the women are being empowered and the men are being reprogrammed. And as we go through this process, we will link up back together, because Aquarius is an androgynous sign, meaning it's like male and female. So we're in a time of us being both rebuilt so that we can align with one another and we can come together. So we're in a great time, man. We just gotta keep going forth and pass this message on to our kids. Keep empowering them, keep educating them. We're in a different time. We're not in the age of Pisces no more, where everything's kind of confused and illusionary. We're in a time that we know what time it is, and we just got to do what we got to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. And Kaya, I want to yield the mic to you to talk a little bit to the room about the difference between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, because even though there are those of us who have been studying this and preparing for this and that type of thing, a lot of people may not understand what the ancient Mayans have already told us this season, and what the implications are, because this is very fertile ground, and that is why the spiritual warfare is such at the level that we are. But we can't give the energy to it because we are literally batteries. And so when people can stick their charges into our mind, and we start to go into fear, into worry, into panic, then it feeds the proverbial machine, if you will. And there are several levels that this warfare is happening on, but you best believe that NASA is not reporting what they call extraterrestrials, which is really just our family waiting on us to awaken, that they are showing up. And NASA is reporting what they call sightings every day. So there is a level, but everybody energetically, I talked about this, and I do talk about this privately, everybody energetically, they aren't able to move forward in this vibration. And what we're seeing is a natural It's called the law of elimination. And a lot of times as metaphysicians, as teachers and awakeners, we don't want to talk about that. And so it's easy for us to even go into the program about death, which is grief and sadness and mourning, because we have not been taught, first of all, what it means to be able to vibrate at a higher level to sustain the change that's happening on the planet. Kaya, would you like to take that on? If not, I'll yield the mic to whoever will, and then we're going to be closing out real soon.
Yes, I'll say a little bit about it. The age of Pisces to me, was more about where religions and laws and things were being placed upon people back then. And, the burning, like the knowledge that they had then is not what we have, particularly right now, because some of the information was burned. Some of the information was hidden. We don't have that information anymore. So to go off what we can, at least as far as back as we can know as, and feed off that kind of energy, because that energy is gone. It's gone. And that was a time where a lot of people were, or the women or the men, being raped and being like in that delusional kind of state of mind. We were being tricked and robbed of our own land, our own nature, just by conversation. It's kind of crazy, but by conversation. And now that we in the age of Aquarius, it's all about doing for self now. How can we do for self? It's about groups and communities and coming together, like drumline, one band, one sound. Now when I all come together collectively, we may form our groups individually, but at least that we are starting to form our groups and standing for our rights. And I wanted to also state that one thing when Obama was president was he said to Mitt Romney, but to me it stuck out as a little bit more about us. He told Mitt Romney to check the transcript. I'm like, wait a minute, check the transcript. Yeah, because the United States sits in their fourth house, right? We're talking about the mother, that the fourth house rules the mother. They have Chiron in Aries. Chiron is in Aries, right? Currently, right now. And it always seems when Chiron goes to the Aries, all hell breaks loose, a virus occurs or something kind of outbreak occurs, right? Why is that? Because I want to rock you back to sleep with the age of Pisces. Rock you back to sleep. No, we're not having at this particular time. We need to find out where them papers at. And this is all about healing. So there's a lot of healing going on. It's going to be continue to go on for at least another year or so with Chiron is in Aries, because that's their initiation. That's where we're wounded at. We're wounded in our roots. We're wounded because we don't know who we are. All of us don't know who we are. So yeah, we healing to find out these things. And that is what Chiron in Aries at 20 degrees. So when Chiron goes into Aries at 20 degrees, let's believe that some of us will be more woke than woke. But those who are not want to wake up, you gotta just leave them behind, because everybody can't be woke at the same time. We can't go back and say, oh, you okay? And how can we fix this? If you're not willing to change, you have to be willing to change. If you're willing to change, so I'll see you later. I'm gonna ride this fake train right now, because this is what our ancestors fought for. And we ain't gotta do that right now. They fought, they marched, they set them buses at. We don't have to do any of that. We got to apply ourselves this particular time frame and come with force in our community.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. Thank you so much. That was well done. All right. Go ahead, Doctor.
Okay. Another perspective from like more so what she was kind of elucidating, what she was saying, if that's okay, 60 seconds.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that we're taught within the Mayan calendar, I study all kind of different sciences, but they all kind of bridge together. But it talks about how we're in this sort of super consciousness of the fifth dimension. That's the age of Aquarius. And what's happening is this realignment of the cell consciousness. And so we're getting an upgrade, right? This is like, it's helping the humans bridge the dimensions and realign with this sort of multi-dimensional destiny, right? With our multi-dimensional selves. And the way it's doing that is through these dream spells that's being codified and transmitted through from what they call planet Nibiru. But this is series A, right? You got A and B. But what it's doing is it's giving us energy. So a lot of people are like, where are the ancestors? That is them. They're illuminating information so that your DNA can be recodified, right? And when your DNA is being recodified, that is the awakening. You know how they talked about the junk DNA? No longer will we be operating from this sort of junk DNA. We're being activated, and these gene mutations is happening across these codon rings within your body, right? And what happens is when those gene mutations happen within those codon rings, within the spirits of you, your being, the nucleus of your cells, it gives permission, right, to the people that are like you outside of you to hold the line as well, the same, right? And so that's kind of what we're doing. We're activating these sort of energies from the fifth dimensional perspective of our multidimensional cells, and we're bringing them back into the earth. And so we are here to ensure that the earth is ultimately synchronized with the new galactic beam of information, and this is known as the synchronic order. And lastly, what I would tell you, as soon as we operate with this sort of super galactic consciousness and absolute understanding of universal design, then we will align with the principles of the cosmos. And she just spoke about that. She said, when it moves this many degrees, we're going to be hyped up. This is a real thing. You got some people who are actually dying, falling dead and sick because they can't make the shift within their DNA. Because they didn't get past the trauma. They didn't heal past the trauma, right?
That's right.
They stayed angry. They stayed fearful. They stayed when that whole dream spell they start permeating itself through this hologenetic sense of healing, right? Through our profiles, they refused to wake up because of either fear or whatever it was, trauma, whatever it was. And so some of them are not being able to make the shift. And so now we're going through this sort of activation of radiogenetically transmutation of the codes, right? These are big words, whatever, but this is what's happening, right? We are literally going into our radio bodies, RADIAL, right? And we're going to be able to literally transmutate like that. We're going to be on sort of this telepathic communication with the divine, and then the primordial waters, the forces are going to stand up in our vessels, and that's when the fight is going to come. So we got to be ready for the fight, because see, Aquarius is all good and loving, but it's all about that war in between.
That's right.
And so this, right, is coming. It's coming, right? And so when you hear your sister, you hear your brother, you feel the warrior within them, you hold the line, you cuff arms and say, let's go.
Yes.
Right. So that's what's happening.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes, indeed. So I am so grateful that you were able to join us and take us higher. And so even when we talk about the family business and starting there, you and Kaya said we are going to have to leave some people behind, but it's not leaving people behind. Everybody has a choice. And if your bloodline is choosing, if they're choosing another road and you're choosing the road less traveled, I often want to just be the one to remind you that you are called for a time and a season such as this, and to follow every crumb. And one of my sisters says it like this: question your doubts and hold sacred your questions, because sometimes we have been taught to move away from the things that they were afraid of. Address your fears, question your fears, and what you have been made afraid of, because that also is a form of annihilation. And so many of you who are called always was the one to ask the questions. You always were by design supposed to be the one in the bloodline to be able to access these primordial waters, as my sister talks about. And that's a great level to close on, because the primordial is the mother. And so there is a connection beyond the physical. So when we look at these physical family members and we stop there, then we are limiting ourselves. I love that we are talking about being galactic beings, because when the scripture says, I look to the hills from whence cometh my help, it says it comes from the law of life, the Lord. But we have been thinking that it comes from the little church on the top of the hill with the little steeple on top. But look beyond even the steeple, look beyond the building, and look into the heavens, which is the higher mind, the higher consciousness. And so I want to leave you all on this note. I think we've gone quite a while. Somebody just jumped. Okay, so now y'all got your fire got ignited. So we'll close out with Latoya. Did someone jump on the stage? Oh, I thought you had jumped on the stage, Latoya. Did you jump on the stage, Chantel and Cheryl? I think you're unmuted. Okay. All right. So we're going to go on and close out the room. If you're unable to speak, we're grateful that you were able to stay in. Karen, did you have anything to add? No?
No, I thoroughly enjoyed those last two ladies. I want to tell you to get your little clapper and clap.
Yeah, I know, right? You know me. Yeah. You know me. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're so right. So I want to go on and yield the mic to Yolanda and Shaquanda to close. We opened up with them, and then I want you to close us out, Dr. Tasha, and we want to come back to this next Wednesday. If you are interested in developing a new relationship with your money, with your business, then consider New Mind, New Money. Follow the speakers and everybody in the room so you can get the alert. Some of you all came into the room, Jeannie, Risha, follow me, follow the speakers so that you can get the alerts. If you are part of the Rebirth Woman community, we are moving off of Facebook, the community, so that we can connect, because I've been saying all year last year, all during this pandemic with the L, is that we have to tribe up. Your family is going to think you crazy. Many of you have been silent for far too long. You've been pretending like you don't know what you do know. And it's time to get off of the fence. It's time to detox and stop eating foods that are genetically altered and modified for a reason. The same man that is pushing the vaccines is the same man that is also pushing synthetic foods. So don't think because you go to KFC and you get a vegan burger. No, they're manufacturing meat. There are some states who have approved for bodies to be dissolved, liquefied, that have this bioweapon in their body and added to the soil that they're growing and manufacturing food. So pretty soon, this industrial revolution, it's on its last leg too. So when we see institutions falling, it's by design. Many of you prayed for change. Our mothers prayed and sang and wept and moaned. And it is happening now in this age of Aquarius. And Aquarius is a rebel. Aquarius really doesn't care what you think about them. They come off as being gregarious. So don't even go to sleep when we think that some of these victories are being won. Don't think that the victories are being won just yet, because the ego fights for its life. That's what the ego does in us, but it also does it in the collective, and it also does it by the representatives of the Piscean age. It fights for its life. You know how you fight to be right. You know how you fight not to be vulnerable. And that's why doing our own inner work first is paramount to healing our bloodline and be connecting beyond our bloodline. So I want to yield the mic to Yolanda, to Shaquanda, and to our good Dr. T, as I'm affectionately calling her. And then we'll close out. Just a few minutes, just a couple minutes, not long, y'all.
Right. Thank you, Rev Coach. This was just a wonderful conversation. And my takeaway is that it's time to play as a team, and time to be able to recognize who your team players are, and time to honor yourself and honor each other and build what we desire. I love what everybody said, but the sister who hit it on the head for me, who talked about it's time to receive. Ooh. And so with that, I pass.
Thank you.
Wow, this has been so amazing. Thank you so much, Rev Coach, for this platform, for this conversation. for the seed zone. I have so many ahas and awarenesses off the information that has been that has transpired. My takeaway, as we were having our discussion, my takeaway is we've just got breaking news that there was a press conference of a interest rate hike or something that we already know about. Normally that invokes fear, but after this conversation, I hope that will force you to go invest in your mindset, invest in your money, and invest in your legacy. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much. First, I'm going to talk about my takeaway. Question your doubts and hold sacred your questions. Question your doubts and hold sacred your questions. We are on a journey of remembrance, and so we're here to wake up those cosmic memory circuits. And as we receive the language of the light codes, and as we allow our light bodies, right, to receive that energy from the sun, what we're going to do is we're going to hold the posture of receiving. There's something so brilliant on the other side. There's something so magical on the other side. And if we can just hold ourselves in place as the turbulence comes, we will see the light. And so I thank you guys so much for allowing me to share this space with such an intention of power. Because one thing about Black women that I love and I've always just admired about us is that we are power. And as we go through with all of our economics, first of all, we will not do economics. We will become the new economics. And when we forge through this new life that we're creating and we're dreaming into being, with that mindset and that posture, wow, what a new world this will become. And so I thank you so much to my friend and my new sisters for inviting me here. And I say ashe.
Ashe. We're going to do more work together. In fact, with us being in this area, this common area, there's some introductions that have to happen. And we are going to live this, what I call feminine economic development. My tribe is, they say, me and my house, we will serve. We will serve. My tribe, I feel, is really ignited to do this. And so I really want to continue to encourage you all, one, to tribe up, to get into community, to get around people who, where you don't feel like the weirdo, the black sheep, the outcast. Start there and build together. And if you have differences, acquire the skills to settle them in yourself and with your others, whoever your others are. Learn to talk through and also surrender people. Do not die. The old paradigm of martyrship is not the paradigm that we are fast forward. And we thank our brother Hakeem for bringing his voice, reminding us of astrology. We thank you for all of you who hung on in the room and have passed on and shared the room. We'll return here next Wednesday at 1:00. We'll be in a new month, a new year. Excuse me. Yeah, we're still in the new year, new month, and a new book. And so I'm open to suggestions. Please feel free to make them. We also are going to have some special rooms sometimes on Saturdays. We're going to move into more of the feminine in our next iteration of our relationship with our economic development. We're going to forward this even higher around feminine leadership. So I love you all. There's nothing you can do about it. I'll see you on the other sides of where we are sharing and contributing. Have a good evening. And consider New Mind, New Money. Go to newmindnewmoney.com and connect with us. All right. Ciao. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for hanging in there for this extended conversation.